medicine cabinet popped open with a click. There was nothing in the cabinet, though. Literally nothing. I shined my light into the black void, and all the light was swallowed up. There was no indication of an end to it. I grabbed a toothbrush holder from the counter. It wasn't the same one I had bought. The holder that I bought was porcelain, and had an image of a bear painted on it. This one was made out of wood, and had swirly designs etched into it. I tossed it into the void, but it never made an impact sound. I slammed the cabinet shut. This was just way too much for me. I turned the faucet on to splash some water in my face. The liquid that came out of the spigot looked like coffee and smelled like antiseptic scrub. I sighed and shut the faucet off before hobbling back down to the hall. My hands were burning from the cold. It became obvious to me that I would freeze to death long before I bled out. There was some winter clothing in the bottom of the blanket chest in the bedroom. It was on the other side of the hallway, though. I got there with no problems this time. When I walked towards the blanket chest, there was a piece of paper taped to the wall above it. Written in quick panic letters, it said, "Do not remove." There was another piece of paper lying beside the chest. I picked it up. A police hat, a badge, and one empty bullet shell was lying underneath the note. I've been in here for days. I don't know how long exactly. My watch stopped working. I tried to dig through the wall to get out. They didn't like that. I saw something on the other side that made me not want to live anymore. Please, don't look outside. You will regret it. I'm sorry, Sarah, but I have to do this. Tell Brad he can have my truck. Terry Ames. So they did send an officer to check the place out. I felt sick and tried not to think about it. I lifted the blanket chest. Some of the stuff had changed, just like the toothbrush holder, but most of it was still the same. I killed that man. I sent him here. I tried to push those thoughts out of my mind. Instead, I dug through the blankets and grabbed up all the winter gear I could find. One sweater was now composed of something that felt like paper and tore when I picked it up. I bandaged my leg with a scarf. It wasn't the best thing to do, but it would work for the moment. My thoughts wouldn't leave me alone, though. I started crying. I sent a man to his death because of my paranoia. My selfish fucking paranoia. Why did I do it? Why? I composed myself as quickly as I could and tried pushing the thoughts out of my mind once again, concentrating instead on bundling myself up in the winter clothes. Almost instantly, I started feeling warmer. Question lingered in my mind, though. Where is his body? Did someone take his body and gun, but leave the note? My sorrow was quickly replaced with fear. I heard a light tap. It sounded like a piece of paper falling. It was the paper from the wall. I heard a hateful, angry grunt and felt like I was being watched. I refused to turn around and look. I ran out of the room and slammed the door shut. My brain told me to keep my eyes straight ahead, and if anything, today has taught me to listen to what my brain has to say. I sat down on a chair in the kitchen and pulled out my phone. I should have done this a long time ago. My phone told me I had 5 bars, a full signal, so I dialed 911. What was I going to tell them? That my cabin has turned into a fucking haunted house? No, I was going to say I was being held hostage, and I was never more scared in my entire life, neither of which were lies. I was also going to tell them the people holding me hostage killed a cop. They would probably send more than one officer if I told them that. I hit the send button. Before the second ring, someone picked up on the other end. I couldn't hear anything at first. Hello? Hello? Then I started to hear murmuring. It was really low at first, but got progressively louder. I listened for a few minutes. I don't know why. It was incomprehensible, angry-sounding whispers in a language I've only heard once before. It was the language from my nightmares. There were occasional shouts, something that might have been angry sobs, and I started to feel dizzy again, like I was going to pass out. Then the voice stopped whispering, and started talking normally. Its voice was no longer in the phone, though. It was right behind me. I felt warm air on my neck as it spoke. I jumped out of the chair and pushed the end button as hard as I could. I slowly turned around, pointing my flashlight towards the sink. The light gleamed off the handle, and nothing else. I breathed a sigh of relief. I knew for a fact there was something behind me. My neck had a film of condensation on it from the thing's breath. The important fact of the matter is, though, that it wasn't there anymore. My phone let out a happy little jingle and vibrated in my hand. I'd gotten a text message and could see there was a picture attached to it. I tore the battery out of my phone and put it in my pocket. I wasn't about to invite whatever the fuck it was on the other side of the phone over again. It might stay this time. I walked all around the middle floor looking for my way out. My flashlight went over every surface. The material of some things changed. The TV was now composed of some green, spongy crap. The remote looked the same, but weighed a ton. I couldn't lift it, and the magazines dissolved when I touched them. The salt shaker was the same, but inside the salt had turned into a single purplish crystal. The most notable change were the stairs, of course. They'd become an impassable mess of sharp metal thorns, and there was no way I could go up them. The door that led to the bottom floor was still there, and I opened it. A cold blast of air hit me. The stairs leading down to the landing were gone, replaced with the same black void that was in the medicine cabinet. I could still see the landing, and the stairs leading from the landing further down. I walked over to the kitchen counter and grabbed an apple. It was now made of metal and weighed about 10 pounds. When I dropped it into the void, the apple was absorbed by the darkness, and I never heard it hit bottom. I had no options. I was stuck. I sat down beside the door. They had me trapped like a rat in a cage. I had checked every inch of the cabin that I could get to. There was just no way out. I searched the walls of the stairwell with my flashlight. What I saw gleamed like a beacon in my flashlight's ray. A sliver of hope attached to the wall. The stairs were gone, but the banister was still there. Climbing down that banister was dangerous, but it was the only option I had left, and in my desperation, it sounded like a good idea. I put the flashlight in my mouth and gave the banister a strong tug. It was securely fastened to the wall. As I put my feet over the side of the pit, I thought that this was the craziest, most desperate thing I'd ever done. I checked my gloves to make sure they were secure, then grabbed the banister with both hands and pushed myself off the floor. I slowly made my way down. The angle made it difficult to stay balanced. My feet pushed against the wall until I got about midway down. My arms were burning from the effort. I've never shimmied across anything before in my life, so I was in quite a bit of pain. Right after I reached the middle, something started pulling on my feet. I almost lost my grip the first time it happened. I kicked out and quickened my pace, started charging down the wall as fast as I could. It would tug occasionally, and almost pull me completely down one time. The thought of spending the last moments of my life in that dark void drove me forward. I got to the point where I could put my feet on the landing. I kicked and shook my feet free from whatever was holding me and threw myself towards it. I quickly moved my arms down. I made it. I was so happy to be alive. I sat in the corner of the landing for a good long while, shaking. The things I would have done for just a drink of water. My arms still felt like noodles, but I felt good enough to start exploring the bottom floor. I walked down the last of the steps leading into the entertainment room. The first thing I noticed was light. 2 candles dimly flickered on the coffee table. I turned my light towards it and instantly regretted my decision to come down there. Between the candles were a pair of eyeballs. They had all kinds of muscles and cords attached to them. I was so fixated on the eyes that I didn't notice the horror that lay beyond them. As I approached the eyes, I heard a gasp of air. I shined my light behind the eyeballs and almost fell over in shock. It was the little girl I'd seen in the car. She was hanging behind the candles. Her hands and feet were cut off. Her stumps were suspended to the ceiling and floor with large metal hooks and chains. Her eyes were gone. I assumed the ones lying between the candles were hers. She had a perfectly straight slice from her neck all the way down her body, and there was blood all around her. The girl's chest moved in and out. She was still alive. My brain was completely fried at the sight of her. This couldn't be real. The girl let out a long gasp of air, craned her neck towards me in an uncomfortable way, and I let out a yelp. "Help me!" She sounded weak. I didn't know what to do. I stood there dumbfounded. "Don't let them come through." Again, it hurt so bad. "I'm going to get help. What's your name?" "Cindy." "All right, Cindy. I'm going to go get help, and we'll get you out of here, okay?" I was on the verge of tears. She sounded so done. "You can't help me. There's no help for anyone here." The tone of her voice started to change. "What do you—"
"There's no fucking help for you or me."
Cindy's voice was now an angry roar. Something in her changed, as if she had become possessed.
"Why didn't you get me out of the car when there was a chance for help?"
I was shocked. "How did you know I thought about—" Cindy cut me off again.
"You can't save anyone, can you, Mark? First Penelope, and now me."
"How the fuck do you know about Penny?"
"I know quite a bit, Mark. I know what was, what will be, and what could have been."
Cindy began to tell me my most embarrassing secrets, one by one. She even named a few I'd forgotten. I started yelling at the girl. "Stop this! Stop this now! Right now!" The disfigured girl went quiet for a beat.
"No. I want to punish you, Mark. I want to make you feel just a tiny amount of the pain I'm suffering."
She still had a child's voice, so it was quite disturbing hearing this from her. "I know how my life would have been if you pulled me out of that car."
"I would have married a man named Arthur Levant when I was 26. We would have been very happy together.
Her eyeless sockets stared at me intently.
Now, because of you, I'll never talk Johnny Hicks out of driving drunk when I'm 20. He's going to kill a family of 4.
"Look, I'm sorry, I didn't know."
"I'm going to show you, Mark."
She continued on as if I didn't say anything. "Gonna show you real good." My brain felt strangely empty. I couldn't think or speak, and my vision went black. I was back in the cabin. It was 2005. I knew this somehow. Penelope was standing at the very top rung of the ladder. She was painting the top of the wall, and I was stressed. This little project of hers put us eyeballs deep in debt. She looked down at me, and her eyes were beautiful. Everything about Penny was perfect. Why couldn't I see that before? "Don't worry about it, Mark. We'll make the money back and more." Her voice was so soft, so inviting. I heard myself speak. "Look, Penny, we didn't have the money in our budget for paint this week. You could have waited until next week to do this. The faster we get this done, the faster we can get people to stay here. It's all gonna work out, Mark. Grab a brush. We can go $12 over budget. It doesn't matter." I could tell now that Penny was stressed as well, but she held it much better than me. I stood there watching her paint. Her dad dealt with houses all his life. She had to have known something about making money with one. I didn't think of that then, though. I was mad over the $12 she spent without telling me. I then said the 5 words I've regretted saying the most in my life. "I'm going for a walk." The walk was nice. The sky was pure blue, a perfect spring day. It helped me clear my head. When I came back, I would find Penny on the ground. Blood all around her head. She fell off the ladder and cracked her skull on the floor. She bled out before I even came back. I called an ambulance. She was pronounced dead on the scene. Life would never be good for me again after that. I finished the renovations on the cabin. I felt it was what Penny would have wanted. People started coming in, word of mouth spread, and now I have to turn people away because the cabin is so booked up. She was right. It worked out. I hate having to come out to the cabin. It hurts every time I enter it. Instead of all that playing through again, in this little world Cindy is showing me, in this plane of existence, I walk to the door for my walk and stop. I turn around and say, I don't really feel like walking. Then come over here and paint. We still got a lot to do. So I did. I dunked a brush into the white paint, started to carefully coat the wall. The ladder Penny was on began to topple. I dropped the brush and grabbed it before it could fall. Holy shit! I could have taken a mean fall there. She sounded excited. I would have had to use the paint scraper to clean your brains off the floor. She laughed, and I did too. The cabin would become a hit, even more than it is now. I guess some people put more trust into a married couple. I saw myself turning down a couple from the small town of Alfred, Florida. I told the Andersons that we were just too booked up and we were sorry for not being able to squeeze them in. We had 2 beautiful children, Harry and Andrea Gray. Harry would make a modest living as an auto mechanic, and Andrea would become one of the best real estate agents in the South. She could have sold an igloo on the beach. Penny and I retired to the cabin when it got too much for our aging bones to care for. We began to live in it permanently. Penelope was beautiful even in old age. I would die before her from some type of illness. The last thing I would have seen was my wife, my children, and my grandchildren. Reality came rushing back to me. I didn't want it to. I was speechless and racked with a deep depression. I would never experience any of those things. All because of an argument over $12.
You didn't save her.
Cindy immediately began taunting me. I moved my light to the mantel. There was an old cast-iron fire poker sitting on it. There wasn't even a fireplace down here, but it made a nice decoration. I picked it up and it felt like it was made out of some kind of wood now, and walked over to the girl. I'm just a child. Her voice became frail again. You wouldn't kill a child, would you, Mark? You're not a child. You're a monster. I lifted the poker up. I was going to kill her for showing me what my life could have been like. Cindy began screaming. It was a painful, terrified howl. I heard a terrible ripping noise. The split going down her body began to open up. The now massive hole in her body began to glow a dark purple color. The entire room lit up. I shielded my eyes and stepped back from the brightness, seeing 2 emaciated figures walk out of the light. Sam and Martha's bodies were much paler than before. They were white as mimes. Their lips couldn't close completely, so they had a constant grimace. Sam was smiling. His mouth went from ear to ear. They seemed to have an extra knuckle on each finger. Sam walked towards me with his claw-like hands outstretched, and I swung my poker at him. He let out a screech that Martha seemed to respond to. Her eyes were small, like a bird's, and her nails tore through my pants to dig into my skin. I whacked her on the head with the poker, but she didn't let go, didn't react to the pain of getting hit at all. I turned my head around to see Sam knock me square in the face with his long hand. My flashlight dropped, but I kept a tight grip on the poker even as I fell to the ground. Martha started making hissing and clicking sounds, and Sam replied in the same manner. He grabbed me by my jacket as she grabbed me by my legs, and they started to carry me back into the light. Something in my brain went nuts. I did not want to go wherever the hell they were taking me. They didn't seem to notice that I still had the poker with me, or they didn't care. I swung it at Sam and smacked him right in the face. He didn't even flinch. I had no options. They were going to drag me into that place, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. I saw it then, saw it rapidly moving in the purple glow of the light. Cindy's heart was still inside her. It was beating really fast. Those stupid fuckers didn't even realize the predicament they'd put themselves in. Sam was halfway into the light and I was at the edge of it. I swung the poker at Cindy's heart as hard as I could, and the organ exploded. I heard several inhuman screams and everything went dark. The world around me felt like it was melting as I got dizzy. For a brief moment, I forgot everything. Who I was, what I was going through, everything. When I woke up, it was dark again. I crawled around on my hands and knees until I found the flashlight. Turning it on, I looked around the area. Cindy still hung limply on the chains, her body already decomposing. It smelled terrible. Lying beside her was the top half of Sam. The other half must have stayed in that place. In the corner of the room, the pale, beady-eyed Martha sat. She was breathing heavily and shaking, as if she was suffocating. I watched the creature slump over and stop moving. When I poked her body with the poker, she was dead. I needed to get away from this smell. I moved my flashlight around and noticed that the windows and doors existed again. They were just sealed up with a particle board. I ran towards the staircase where the void was, and found it was gone. Stairs had come back. I ran up them as fast as I could and opened the front door. There was light. Just a small amount, though, was coming from the front door I'd smashed open earlier. I ran outside. I was free. I never thought I would see the sun again. I dove into my car and chugged the bottle of water I had placed in the cup holder earlier. The clock on the dashboard said it was 6:13 p.m. I laughed like a madman, laughed until I cried. It's been 2 months since I went to that place last. 2 months since I had a good night's sleep. I finally stirred up the courage to go and clean the cabinet today. I thought it might be cathartic for me to rip away all the boards from the windows. It wasn't. I was in constant fear during my short stay at the cabin. I was scared that I would once again get swallowed into the dark, cold place that looked like it, but wasn't it. Scared that I would not be able to leave and would slowly freeze to death in a place I would never understand. When I got downstairs, I had to deal with the bodies. I put trash bags over my arms and dragged them out. Maggots had started to crawl inside them, and Cindy's body was so rotten, my fingernails went right down to her bones. I threw up several times. Worst of all, though, Martha was still alive in some capacity. Her small, beady eyes followed my every move. I tried to ignore it, dug a deep hole in the flower bed, and placed the bodies inside. Then I poured kerosene into the hole, making extra sure Martha was completely doused before setting them all on fire. And then I ran back inside. I couldn't watch them burn. The next few days were spent cleaning the cabin, and when I absolutely had to sleep, I went out to my car. Once I was done, I sped off with no intention of ever returning. I haven't opened the cabinet back up for business yet, and I don't think I ever will. Occasionally, I'll see shadows moving around my own house, and might even glimpse a pale hand pressing against one of my windows. When I'm in bed, there are times when I can feel them standing over me. I don't have the courage to open my eyes to see them. I don't know what they want from me, but part of me wishes they would get it over with so I could stop living in total terror. I have constant reoccurring nightmares now. Most of the time, I'll dream about an endless field of pale, dead-eyed people staring at me. Another common dream is of me stuck in a cold, dark room screaming for help, my eyes ripped out of my head. The worst dream of them all, though, is the one that shows me the life I could have had with Penny. The life that Cindy let me know I missed. It always begins with me saving Penny from the ladder, and then it cuts to various moments of our life that could have been real had I not gone on that stupid walk. I'll wake up and throw my arm over to Penny's side of the bed, to hold her closer, to tell her that I love her. Every single time, though, my arm hits the cold, empty bed. Every single time I sit up, realize it was all a dream, and start crying. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this story, hit that like button. Consider sharing and subscribing to the channel to be uploaded to new uploads. If you would like to see something specific on my channel, leave a comment below and I will look into it. Good night, everyone.